Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
An elderly couple had dinner at another couple's house, and after eating, the wives left the table and went into the kitchen. The two gentlemen were talking, and one said, "Last night we went out to a new restaurant, and it was really great. I would recommend it very highly." The other man said, "What is the name of the restaurant?" The first man thought and thought and thought, and finally said, "What's the name of that flower you give to someone you love? You know, the one that's red and has thorns?" The other man said, "Do you mean a rose?" "Yes, that's the one," replied the man. He then turned towards the kitchen and yelled, "Rose, what's the name of the restaurant we went to last night?" Oh, getting old is fun. Good morning. Here comes Kate Smith and God Bless America, followed by a Patriot with our Pledge of Allegiance. Morning. And a good morning to you and yours. I'm Zeb Bell, Zeb at the Ranch, with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you, and serving is the key word. Stop in and see them today, along with some of our great advertisers like Western Way Services, always at your disposal. Call them at 734-6969. Right now, let's have our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. You know, it's nice to find out I'm a patriot. Here, I thought I was just the fat, ugly guy.
No, you're not, Jerry. Go ahead with our pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jerry. God bless you, man. Appreciate it. And right now it's time for the weather, and it's brought to you by K&R Rental. Hello, Roger, at 256 South 600 west of Heyburn. And believe me, all the crew over there serving you from 7 in the morning till 5:30 at night. And they've got all the tools and the equipment for the jobs that you need to do, and they'll deliver and pick up the power tools and the heavy equipment at your site. My gosh. All the way from garden tools to you name it, forklifts, they've got it. And they've been in business since 1979. They've got the experience to help you at K&R Rental. Here's Scotty with the weather.
Well, if you're going to be saddling up today, you might pack your rain slicker. Scotty Cameron for your Zeb at the Ranch weather forecast, setting in for Gina Jameson. Yeah, about a 20% chance of showers today, expecting a high around 82. That chance of showers continuing on through tonight with a low of 57. Still about a 20% chance of showers for tomorrow. Highs are going to be at about 86. Things will start clearing off tomorrow night. Partly cloudy, a low of 56. Now for Friday, high around 88, mostly sunny. Then for Saturday, sunny and 90, and that'll continue on through Sunday as well. That's your Zeb at the Ranch weather forecast. I'm Scotty Cameron. Have a great day.
Thank you, Scotty, and great job, by the way. K&R Rental bringing you the weather to kick things off this morning at 256 South 600 west of Heyburn. Number to call, 678-3122, K&R Rental. And, oh, by the way, they're a Honda engine dealer, too. They've got all the parts you might need for your wheel lines, fellas. K&R Rental. Well, good morning, everybody. We got a lot of news to get through this morning, and your calls are primary. I really want your calls, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I want to remind you the Lunch Bunch is going to be tomorrow. I emphasize that Lunch Bunch will be tomorrow at America's Diner, Denny's Restaurant. Don't miss it. We're going to be there at 11:30. Yes, we are. We've got all kinds of door prizes to give away and everything. Oh, it's going to be fantastic. Door prize gift certificate. I put a P in there, and I meant to put certificates. Door prize certificates from Smith's Food, Hanson Mortuary, Stokes Groceries, Doug Martin. It's going to be a lot of fun. Always is. So come on down to Lunch Bunch at America's Diner, Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley, and they also have another location at 291 Pole Line Road in Twin Falls. What an absolutely delicious menu. Super nice people at Denny's Restaurant. We'll see you there tomorrow for Zeb's Lunch Bunch. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Last night, Trump spoke in Phoenix, Arizona. And, yeah, there were the protest anything, know nothing dolts out on the street that were just looking for an opportunity to cause trouble. Really, what do these protesters, what do they do? What do they do other than try to make the 6 o'clock news? What do they do? They stand around and they had signs like resist and totally resist and all the derogatory Trump signs and slogans and everything. But really, what do they do? They're not doing anything. You know, they say, well, they're exercising their First Amendment rights. Okay. But what do? Do they do anything good for the country? Do they offer up any suggestions? Do they offer up anything that might be a cure or a help to Obamacare, the budget, or illegal immigration, whatever? What do these protesters do? And then, last night, I don't know how many of you heard this, but you need to kind of chew on this along with your toast or your bagel this morning. But Howard Dean, the old witless and wacky Howard Dean, came out with a statement that ought to make each and every one of you more than furious this morning. Pardon me, choked on my cough drop. He said, you and me and others are a racist if we vote for any of the GOP in 2018. Oh, wow! Those are fighting words. Howard, not really the brightest bulb in the fixture. And he says, you and I and others are racist if we vote for the GOP in 2018. You know, throwing this racist label on anyone, of which the Democrats here locally in the state of Idaho did it to me in 2007. And I despise them for that and all the trouble that they caused me. Throwing the racist label on anyone that does not vote their way, what an offensive and absolutely no-class attitude. Your thoughts? That's kind of the lead story this morning. If you're going to vote GOP for anybody or anything this next year, you're a racist, according to Howard Dean. Don't forget Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Number to call, 678-0459. And they have all your heating, electrical, and cooling needs. Yes, they do. I'm so impressed with them. They've been in business for over a half a century. That is a long time of perfection and serving you. They're located, as I said, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. They're open at 7:30 in the morning till 5 Monday through Friday. And the number to call, 678-0459, where they provide warm winters and cool summers. At Ramsey Heating and Electric, you stop in and see those really, really good folks today. Absolutely. By the way, I'm waiting for your calls. Don't make me wait any longer. Come on, I want to visit with you. I want to talk real quick about Zollinger Quarter Horse Sale. Good morning, Jerry Zollinger. How are you? The 20th annual production sale is going to be September 9th, coming up in a matter of weeks. And the preview at 10 in the morning, sale at 11 at 1994 South, 100 east of Oakley up at the ranch. Let me tell you something about Zollinger Quarter Horses, and this goes back for a long time. They have excellent high desert and mountain raised horses. These are working horses that absolutely can go into anything, whether it's roping, whether it's cutting, whether it's rein cow horse, or whether it's just for your pleasure. Great minds, conformation, and always an abundance of color. And I urge you to get up there and enjoy this big sale on September 9th, and it's at Zollinger Quarter Horse Sale, 20th annual production sale in Oakley. Don't you miss it. All right, calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. What do you think about the terminology and the ease with which the Democrats and the liberals today, you're a racist? It slides like slime out of their mouth so easy. And yet, when you look at the other side of the aisle, and I'm going to use this example of Maxine Waters. Maxine Waters, a black Democrat from California, easily is in racial tones causing so much strife and causing so much heartache when she calls Dr. Ben Carson a white wing administrator. Not right wing, but white wing administrator. And she's throwing the race card, playing the race card out all the time. Nobody says anything about this. Why? Are they all cowards? The answer to that is yes. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, Deb. Well, I'm wondering if any of these protesters / anarchists have been called to jury selection like me right now. I mean, I'm taking, this isn't where I want to be this morning, is going in to see if I, be part of the Constitution and be selected on a jury. So that's just my comment. If they got time to be anarchists, and they're probably skipping out on jury selection.
You bring up an excellent point this morning, and I compliment you for this. I wonder how many activities or how many different events like jury duty have they just basically shunned or have just kind of said, nah, I'm not going to be a part of it. I'm a protester. I'm going to stand on the street, and I'm going to protest anything. That's my avocation in life. I'm telling you what, this is ridiculous, and you bring up an excellent point. While the rest of us are trying to serve our country.
So thanks for the show.
No, God bless you, sir. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Sure. Bye.
That was a good point, too. I look at these people, and I watched very closely the crowds in Phoenix last night, to which I want to back up a step, if I may. The mayor of Phoenix, a Democrat, absolutely was inviting, I think, this is my opinion, you can disagree, I think he was inviting all the turmoil and tumultuous activities that could have happened last night. And for him, the mayor, to basically go against Donald Trump, our president, as are most of the Democrats and the liberals in this country, I find it appalling. At a time when we've got a lot of insurrection in the world, we've got a lot of people like the Pillsbury Doughboy over in North Korea that wants to punch his pudgy finger into that red button and create a world turmoil with, of course, nuclear activity. We've got a lot more things to worry about than the left and their vicious attacks on Donald Trump. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. Trump is an amazing person. The guy that can tell it like it is and not worry about his so-called political future.
Yeah.
But the way he was able to handle John McCain and Jeff Flake last night was amazing to me because you're not going to name them, but you knew exactly who they were. And then he asked the people, or the camera people there, to show around the room, or around the convention center, all the people that were there, and they wouldn't do it.
Yeah. And many of the criticisms... Many of the criticisms last night that were leveled at the media from Donald Trump, of which I want to talk about in just a minute, but many of them turned their cameras off and didn't record the verbiage that he was using at that particular time in his speech. They turned it off and then they turned them back on again. The media and the people that represent the various news departments of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, they are, write this down, it might be a news flash for you, they're cowards.
Yeah, and and I think Fox News needs to take a look at what they're doing, because when he asked them to show the cameras around the convention center, Fox didn't do it either. So, they're kind of they wanted to get down the middle of the road, and I'll tell you what, this is not the time to be in the middle of the road.
No, I agree with you, B.
People on each side, they're shooting at you.
I agree with you. And Keith, thank you very much for your comments on that. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Going back a moment ago to what Keith had mentioned about the media and everything, I do think, and I'm in agreement with a couple of commentators I heard talking about this same thing yesterday afternoon, I do think that now it's time to move on. I think it's great that Trump tweets. I don't mind that at all. I mean, he's telling the American public what his thoughts are, and he's being upfront about it. But I think it's time to move on from the fist fight, if you will, verbally, with the media, and just go on and just legislate, execute what you want to get done. And the devil be darned. Caller, I'll be right with you. Stand by. I've got to pay a bill here real quick. I want to remind everybody about Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Oh, I've said it for a long time. My tagline to them, helping you get back to being you. That's the truth. They can help anybody after surgery or an accident, a strain, a sprain, whatever. They've got the best in physical therapists, and that's not bragging. That's a fact. Along with the hydrotherapy pool, the only one of its kind in the area. Oh, they're good. You better give them a call for an appointment today. 678-1191. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, absolutely the best. Caller, good morning to you.
Well, good morning, Zeb. The big problem we've got today is many of these people out there that are protesting, they either don't realize or don't care that our country is being run over by an open-door policy where we've got people from all over these terrorist countries and everything flooding into our country.
Yep.
And on top of that, we've got a left-wing Democratic Party that's almost in cahoots with these people that are flooding our country.
Almost in cahoots?
And because of the generous taxpayers that we have here, they're overpopulating, and they don't realize that this country's going to go down if we don't put a stop to what's happening in our streets.
Yeah, I had a call, and a guy criticized me for being against helping all the, and his words were, helping all the people that want to come here. And I said, all the people? And he said, yes, I think you're wrong in saying that. I said, wait a minute, sir. All the people that want to come here, we can't take their numbers and maintain any kind of civility or any kind of a tax structure or any kind of economic advance, or environmentally, we can't take all the people that want to come here. And he doesn't seem to understand that right now we're at a crossing. We are having a hard time with our budget, our economics, and, of course, trying to transition away from the last devastating 8 years of Obama. We have to be very careful about putting ourselves under, because everyone that comes here doesn't have a job, doesn't have any stability, doesn't have anything. We, the taxpayers, are on the hook. Would you argue that statement, Tony?
Oh, absolutely. absolutely. And if this turmoil continues, we're either going to have martial law, or the only other thing that's going to save America is a government takeover of our country and flush out all these people that don't belong here.
Yeah.
Maybe there's going to be a lot of people that don't realize what's going on, but that's the way I'm looking at things right now.
Absolutely. I always appreciate your call, Tony. You know you're a good friend of ours, and so thank you very much for your call this morning. I appreciate it. God bless.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, some of these less-than-mental giants that think we can keep absorbing like a sponge all the people that want to come here, that's ridiculous and insane. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I got to tell you about an absolutely ridiculous, it's so insane, this story. You're not going to believe it. If you've heard it, you're going to be scratching your head again, so stand by. I'll get to that in just a moment. Want to remind you about our friends over at Autumn Haven Assisted Living Center. Oh, these are awfully nice people, and they really, really care. You need to get a hold of them today, because I'll tell you what, Autumn Haven Assisted Living Center at 924 Christian Way in Rupert is the only locally owned and operated assisted living facility in the Mini-Cassia area, and they do make every effort to make Autumn Haven the best place. You know, they invite you to call. They invite you to stop in. They invite you to take a tour for the possibility of having your loved one that needs that little extra help to live there and just absolutely enjoy themselves. Autumn Haven Assisted Living Center at 924 Christian Way in Rupert, 436-3200. They're small compared to some, but with a bigger heart than most. Caller, thank you. Good morning. You're on the air. And they're backing up. Deet, 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 a deet. Call again, caller. My goodness sakes, don't chicken out on us. There was a story that when I first heard this, honestly, I thought it was a joke. I thought it was basically kind of a right-wing slam against the left-wing stupidity, for which there is a lot to slam. But it's the truth. ESPN has pulled an announcer for doing the upcoming college football game at the University of Virginia versus, I think it was William and Mary. Why? Did he do something wrong? Did he say something wrong? Did he act in a unprofessional manner? No. They're pulling him off the roster of being one of the announcers. Caller, stand by. I'm going to be right with you. Don't go away. They're pulling him from being one of the announcers because of his name. He is an Asian-born announcer that has the name of Robert Lee. Think about it. And ESPN made a decision to pull him from that game at the University of Virginia because his name, Robert Lee, was too much like the Confederate general of 150 years ago, Robert E. Lee. This is insanity. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Sorry, sir. They hung up again.
What is their rush? I mean, come on, give me a call back. I want to hear from you. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. ESPN said the following, and this is as wimpy as it gets. We collectively made the decision with Robert to switch games as the tragic events in Charlottesville were unfolding, simply because of the coincidence of his name. In that moment, it felt right to all parties. It's a shame that this is even a topic of conversation, and we regret that who calls play-by-play for a football game has become an issue. Oh, my. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. I'll tell you, the country has gone nuts if they listen to that mainstream media and hear those lies. I've got a relative that listens to the public radio every day and is vehemently anti-Trump. Well, that's all that comes off in this media. But your comment about all of this stuff, because you got a name like, that's good. What if his name had been Robert Jones or Robert Brown? I mean, I've got to, it's just unbelievable. But the Americans are standing up, and of course, the rally last night surely proved that. But once again, I'm saying our local paper here refused, even though we supposedly have freedom of expression to print, that I said that there would have been no demonstration, no violence in Charlottesville if the liberal radical left had not showed up. And that's a fact.
Yeah.
They're the ones who started it. Our local paper refuses to print that.
Well, let's stop wait a minute. Adrian.
Page.
Wait a minute, just a second.
Change that paragraph to conform.
Yeah.
That freedom of, that's censorship.
Yeah.
But this is going on right here with our local paper in Flint Falls.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So I changed the wording, put in something totally different, actually, in substitute, Zeb.
It goes back to cowardice. It goes back to the First Amendment and freedom of expression. It goes back to being fair, balanced, and equal, of which the left is not, never will be. Don't even pray for it, because it ain't going to happen.
Well, it's happening right here in the Magic Valley, and, all the editorials come from Bloomberg or from Washington Compost, and so we have to realize where these guys are coming from. I'm turning that in as a letter to the editor. It's my opinion.
Yes.
And he said he refused to print the letter with that paragraph in there. And like I say, Trump was, they bought the line that it was all the right wing, supposedly. By the way, Nazi stands for National Socialism. So in part, you had one left-wing group opposing another left-wing group, and both of them want to destroy this country.
Yes.
Nazis certainly aren't our friend, and you and I are certainly not white supremacists by any means. And but, they're going to take anything they can. It's all about destroying this country, destroying our culture, bringing in all these refugees that will not assimilate, want to put in Sharia law or whatever, and destroy our Constitution.
I agree with you.
Plenty of neocons like Billy Crystal, they're pushing for a constitutional convention.
Yeah.
And, of course, the left would love to get their hands on that, but many conservatives have fallen into that trap, thinking we can make better what our God-inspired founding fathers put together.
I got to run, Adrian, and get a commercial break in, but I absolutely support you in the letter. You sent me a copy of that, and I absolutely support you, and I denounce the Times News and their so-called amateurish and juvenile editorial staff, because they are not qualified to make, I think, the decisions and the cancellation of free speech. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that very much, because we need more letters to the editor. We need, there's only 2 or 3 conservative letters in the paper every month. I only get one letter, but you ask me to write on this subject, that subject. So I can guarantee you, I only get one letter a month. It's 300 words. That's it.
Got to run. All right. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you.
So
appreciate it. Thank you.
Get those pens out, write them, and even if they're short, make it to the point that you should, whatever the issue is.
Thank you, Adrian. Appreciate it, my dear friend. Have a good day, and keep on writing those letters. Appreciate it. I want to get back to this Robert Lee story. If I were him, and I thought about this overnight, Yeah, I know he's got a job as an announcer, and he does a good job, too, by the way. I've heard him on football games and other events. Robert Lee, of Asian descent, what difference does it make, is a good announcer on ESPN. But if I were him, I'd have to look at the circumstances. And I would have to say to myself, do I want to work for a discriminatory agency and news company like ESPN that is going to use me and my name as a focal point for discrimination? And I'd turn around and I would get the best doggone lawyers available and go after a very liberal, and it's changing more so every day, ESPN. They have become very, very political on what they do, what they say, what they're allowing their commentators to say or not. Look at the case with Curt Schilling, former Boston Red Sox and Diamondback pitcher. They threw him to the wolves. And there are many others that have very secretively come out and said, without having names mentioned, that ESPN is like a cloak and dagger network politically. And I'd sue the pants off of ESPN. How dare they embarrass this man? Honestly, think about this. Think about the fact that you wake up in the morning and you're getting all your prep ready for the NCAA football season. You've got a great game with the University of Virginia. You're the focal point announcer along with your partner, and they give you a call and say, well, we're going to take you off the University of Virginia game because your name, Robert Lee, why, being that Robert E. Lee was a Confederate general, it's too close together 150 years ago, and we find that offensive, and so we're going to cancel you out and put you to another lesser game. Oh, yeah. There's a lawsuit there. Your thoughts. And by the way, do a lot of people not remember after Appomattox, with the treaty signed, ending the Civil War, what did General Robert E. Lee do? He worked tirelessly for the rebuilding and the reunification of the Union. Tirelessly. And a lot of people praised him for laying down his sword and picking up the banner of our United States of America and working tirelessly to bring this country together. Oh, they forget that. They pick and choose what they want you to hear. But this is asinine, stupid, and there's a lot of other cowboy terminology I could use, but I can't on the radio. Discriminating against an announcer whose name is Robert Lee, and canceling one of his games because they found it offensive. It just doesn't end. There are, people say, well, you shouldn't call names. Well, there are idiots and nincompoops and malcontents on the left, and they should be brought out in front of everybody, and I am. ESPN should be condemned for their behavior. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Don't forget, every Monday at 8:30, we give away a dozen cookies to Sophie's Chatterbox, 530 East Street in Rupert. Boy, what a restaurant over there. Boy, what a bakery over there. Woo, I'm drooling, man. I tell you what, they make everything. Cookies, pies, donuts, you name it, it's delicious at Sophie's Chatterbox at 530 East Street in Rupert. Also, want to remind everybody about our friends at Barry Equipment and Rental. Oh my, I got to pick up the card here, and I got to tell you that they have all the equipment to get the job done right. Barry Equipment and Rental, sales, service, and parts, South Lincoln and Jerome, Addison Avenue West, Twin Falls, 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. Oh boy, equipment rentals and retail equipment sales They've got all the Bobcats. I still haven't got my Bobcat. I haven't had time to get everything taken care of with Juan to get it up here so I can clean out my pins and everything. A lot of people are saying, Zeb on a Bobcat, oh my! Well, I'm going to learn how to run it properly. They've got all shapes and sizes there for you at Berry Equipment and Rental. Jerome, Twin Falls, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. This is Leiden. How are you?
I am excellent, my dear friend. What can I do for you?
Oh, I just wanted to make a quick comment on your ESPN situation here. You know, I've always been a really big sports fan and enjoyed watching football and basketball and baseball. And for years, I subscribed to and, you know, followed sports on ESPN and ESPN.com for, you know, for my enjoyment. But over the last few years, I've noticed the same as you have, that their political stances have just become very, very liberal. And about a month ago, they also posted some very inappropriate pictures on their website of tennis players. And I decided that day I'm not going there. I'm not watching their networks. I'm not visiting their websites or listening to them anymore. And so I've completely given up on everything that they've been doing because it's not good for me, and I don't want myself or my family, you know, being subjected to that message.
Let me tell you something, Leiden. My hatred, and it is hatred, towards ESPN started over the Curt Schilling mess. I had a lot of respect for Curt Schilling. He made some mistakes in his life. We all make mistakes. I doubt that you can seriously stand up on a podium and say there's no skeletons in your closet. I know I certainly can't. But I'll tell you what, the way they treated Curt Schilling, the way they absolutely ran him into the ground and made him into a pile of dust, I started my hatred towards ESPN. But this asinine and totally ridiculous, because this man's name, Robert Lee, is similar to Robert E. Lee, the General of the Confederacy. They're taking him off a football game. Now, Leiden, this absolutely is going to the top of the hill of stupidity.
It is, and people are, you know, if you work for them or want to do a deal with them on a football game or something, you have to do a political checklist to make sure that you are meeting their standards, and that's not what sports are about. You know, it's a time when we're all to come together, no matter our political persuasions, and, you know, have an enjoyable time. And when I go to watch a game, that's not what I want to be focused on, and I don't care, you know, what people's political aspirations are during that time. And they're taking their business into a realm where it doesn't really belong, and it's too bad.
I can tell you this much. Leiden, I can tell you this much, that I do know some of the people that work for ESPN, and I can also tell you that there has been a mass exodus of conservatives and conservative viewers that used to watch ESPN religiously. And also, some of the people, like you mentioned, they have to take kind of a critique test as to what they espouse politically before they go to work there. Now ESPN is really screening their people, and some of the announcers, whether they're on the TV broadcasts after the games or the games themselves, have learned that they'd better keep their mouths shut politically if they want to maintain a paycheck.
Yeah, and that's really sad that they won't allow people to have that kind of opinion. But hopefully with some of those people who are leaving, they can somehow form a competitor and provide other means of, you know, providing their talents to allow us to be able to watch games and read about them and read about the athletes and the amazing things that they do. But where ESPN is owned by Disney, that's just such a big powerhouse. It's going to take a lot of us standing up and just ceasing to use them or their products, and in order to send the message that, hey, we're not happy.
I agree with you, but you will also, I think, confirm my thoughts that anybody today, in the climate of political storms and upheaval that is going on today, conservative groups, conservative voices, family and moral value voices are going to be tromped on by the left until they're nothing but dust. I think you will agree with that.
They're sure going to try. Yep.
Leiden, you are a dear friend, and thank you, my dear friend. I appreciate your call this morning. Good points. Thank you so much. There's a man that I absolutely have a lot of respect for, Leiden Crane, and he's with one of our sponsors of the weather this next hour, and I seriously appreciate his call. Thank you so much. Oh, and speaking of the weather, it's time for that, and then I'll get into another story that'll just rock your socks off. Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, and believe me, if you're having some trouble hearing, and you think it's just old age, no. It could be any number of things. It could be related to medicine or maybe some kind of a disease or whatever. You better get one of those hearing screenings, and they're not gonna hurt you. They're really kind of fun. I went through it and absolutely enjoyed it, and it helped too. Dr. Christine Pickup and her staff right there across from the Minidoka Hospital emergency room. Make an appointment today at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, 312-0957. Here's Scotty with the weather.
Well, if you're going to be saddling up today, you might pack your rain slicker. Scotty Cameron for your Zebedee Ranch weather forecast, setting in for Gina Jameson. Yeah, about a 20% chance of showers today, expecting a high around 82. That chance of showers continuing on through tonight with a low of 57. Still about a 20% chance of showers for tomorrow. Highs are going to be at about 86. Things will start clearing off tomorrow night. Partly cloudy, a low of 56. Now for Friday, high around 88, mostly sunny. Then for Saturday, sunny and 90, and that'll continue on through Sunday as well. That's your Zebedee Ranch weather forecast. I'm Scotty Cameron.
Oh, way to go, Scotty. Thank you, Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. And again, the number to call for a hearing screening, and I urge you to do this, is 312-0957. The only locally owned and independent hearing healthcare practice in southern Idaho, Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Well, good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, hey, Zeb, I was reading about Frederick Douglass from the 1860s, the intellectual black historian who understood the basis of our country. And if you were to go and ask Black Lives Matter and these protesters who he was, I bet you they couldn't tell you nothing about Frederick Douglass.
Yeah.
Douglass was no fan of race pride, counting it as a positive evil and a false foundation. He wrote this in the 1860s. It has long been the desire of our enemies, Douglass wrote, to deepen and widen the line of separation between the white and colored people of this country. I mean, if Frederick Douglass was alive and Obama was president, of course, they just disregard these black intellectuals that are true to the foundation of our country, whoever it is, like Ben Carson. I mean, what did Ben Carson ever do to anybody?
Yeah.
Ever.
Well, let's look at it another way, too, Randy. Let me just give you this. If you had a last name today of Washington or Lincoln or Jefferson or Franklin or Jackson or Lee, are you going to feel inhibited because of the left right now? Because for some strange, weird, warped, leftist, absolutely stupid reason, they're going to equate, his name is Washington. Why, he might be related to the slaveholder. Or Lee, oh man, look out, he might be related to Robert E. Lee. Is that what we're coming to in this country because of the left's insinuations on names that we've got to be really careful about how we project our own personal names?
We are so uninformed and ignorant. Not you and I, but I'm talking about, I'm not saying I'm some intellectual either. I just study hard and I know my history. These people are useful idiots, these protesters who go along. And again, if the communists, the socialists win, these useful idiots will be cast aside in short order. Frederick Douglass said there is no such thing as a new truth. In other words, what we did then was true as it is today.
Yeah, and by the way...
And he said that Thomas Jefferson, that how could nothing good come from him because he owned slaves?
Yeah.
He penned the Declaration of Independence. Does anybody even know what it says? We know the preamble to it. We should read it every morning.
Amen.
These people know nothing.
You know, it's got to the point. Okay, let's kind of just quickly, Randy, because I'm almost out of time.
Yeah,
but did you happen to look at the newspaper this morning on their so-called op-ed page, which is lacking for a lot of opinions and editorial content? But on the Times News op-ed page this morning, they had a cartoon. And it was a cartoon of the United States of America with an eclipsed, shadowy figure of Donald Trump's head, basically over the center portion of our United States. And the title of the cartoon was Total Eclipse. And what I took from that cartoon is that those of us that live in the flyover countries and not living on the coasts where all the Democrats and the left-wingers are, we are totally blind and or deaf and dumb as to the realities of the world. And I took high offense to this cartoon this morning.
Well, this is the thing that I keep saying. The people that are protesting and Black Lives Matter and the socialists, they're the ones who are blinded. They do not know their history. They don't care to know their history. They're just out raising hell. But you see, they're useful idiots.
Yeah.
The reason why we all voted for Trump is because we knew our history. We know a thing or two, and we know better. And so, see, the truth of the matter is you can blow smoke, but the people that voted for Trump are not fooled by this media because they would have been fooled before the election.
I agree with you. Randy, I got to run and do a commercial, but I do appreciate your call. And quickly, short answer on this. Short answer, isn't it complete idiocy about removing a man by the name of Robert Lee, an Asian announcer, from a football game because it's too much like General Robert E. Lee?
I tell you what, Zeb, this stuff will never end if we don't stop it.
Amen.
And it goes so far, I guess, but, let's face it, ESPN's ratings are not climbing. They're scrambling to save their behind.
I agree with you. Randy, thank you so much. Appreciate your call. Thank you. I want to give a lot of shout-out and bragging. And bragging is necessary here because they are the best. Now, it's not bragging when it's a fact. So I'm clear. Okay. These folks are the best at what they do and the services that they provide. And I'm so proud to have them as my major sponsor. And I'm talking about your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations. I mean, you stop in and you know you're going to be taken care of. You know you're going to get the best of products. You know you're going to get the best of service. There you go. They want you to get where you're going this summer and then turn around and come home safely. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. And, it's more than just tires. It's the brake service with highly trained technicians. It's the front end alignments. I mean, man alive, you're heading south and all of a sudden it pulls north. You got a problem with your front end. You better get it fixed. It's the shocks and the struts and the batteries, the best of batteries. It's all of this, including the best of service. At your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, Daniel on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland in Burley. The best. Not brag. It's a fact. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Oh, my. Coming up next hour, and Wheels asked me the same thing this morning when I told him the rundown for the program. We've got a gentleman by the name of Robert Romano coming on the program. And right away, Wheels says, well, is he Ray's brother? I thought the same thing. I did. I got to ask him. Anyway, he's the senior editor of Americans for Limited Government, Robert Romano. Then at 9:30, a good friend of ours, George Mass, is going to be here and talking about the Patriotic Car Show. At 10:06, you don't want to miss 10:06. We got James Taylor from the Heartland Institute, and he is going to come on the air and just absolutely dispel the left and their incompetency and their lack of knowledge on really what they're trying to promote to us, climate change. Don't miss that. And that I've been looking forward to having this guy on my program ever since I really got a chance to know him a couple of weeks ago. Marty Van Tassel is a Delta Airlines pilot that flies transcontinental flights, and I wanted to talk to him about how things are going today and how pilots learn about all the different airports and everything. Going to be really interesting, and he's a good guy. All of this and more on Zeb at the Ranch. Don't you miss it. Wheels, take the football and run with it, buddy, through the news. Oh, my. Good morning. Welcome to hour number 2, Zeb at the Ranch. And, of course, I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you, and including also some of our great advertisers like Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Waste Services,
and it's true, always at your disposal. Get the dumpsters. You've been threatening to clean out the basement, the garage, or in my case, my office. And they've got dumpsters in various sizes. Call them, they'll drop it off. You fill it up, they'll come and get it. Man, it's easy as 1, 2, 3. All you have to do is call them at 734-6969. Yep. They're always at your disposal. Western Waste Services. I want to also say thank you to some people that really care about your animals, whether they're big or small. Mixed Animal Practice, Ark Animal Hospital, 750 21st Street, near the Connection Credit Union in Heyburn. Number to call, number to remember, put it on your refrigerator, put it on the dashboard of your pickup, write it in the dust, 678-1177. 678-1177. Warm hearts for cold noses. They really care. And you know, they've been voted Minnecache's best veterinary hospital for multiple years. Dr. Bill and the crew say, come on, we can take care of them, big or small. We love them all. Ark Animal Hospital in Heyburn, 678-1177. Right now, we're going to go to the phone line, and we have a guest for this half hour that I really am looking forward to reading, or not reading, but talking to him about the piece that he had written. And I've got to ask him first and foremost. He is the senior editor of Americans for Limited Government, Robert Romano. Robert, are you related to Ray, a TV series that I love to laugh at? Are you there, Robert? Wheels, where is the caller, please? Is he there?
He should be. Give me one second.
I'm sorry, so sorry.
There we go.
No, not related to Ray Romano, actually. There's a very common name in southern Italy where my family immigrated from about 100 years ago.
Oh, it sounds to me like I better make arrangements to stop over to your house and have some Basta Bazool.
Well, you're more than welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Senior editor of Americans for Limited Government. What does that mean? Tell us a little bit about your organization.
Well, it's kind of like it sounds. We support the constitutional limited government that was put together by the framers, meaning that the federal government should stay in the four corners of that document and only exercise those powers that are granted therein. And otherwise, the rest goes to the states and the people. and all the rights articulated on thereon. And so we support those policies that will, in Congress and via the administration, that will limit the size and scope of government. That means cutting spending, less taxes, fewer regulations, and so forth. At the same time protecting the individual civil liberties of every single American, regardless of race, creed, or religion.
You know, I read your piece called "Obama Did Not Tear Down the Robert E. Lee Memorial on Federal Property," and I, as an American taxpayer and citizen that's very proud of this United States, I've been afforded all the opportunities in this country that I could ever pray for, and I'm seeing the complete denigration of our society, the tipping over and ruining of statues, the throwing of paint on statues like Christopher Columbus, the threats that perhaps they want people to enforce the changing of our currency by taking George Washington off our currency. What are your thoughts about the left and what they're doing right now?
Well, for starters, that's not going to happen. Taking Washington off the dollar bill, it's just never going to happen. And the reason is because he's the founder of this country. You wouldn't have an America if he hadn't led the Continental Army and then presided over the Constitutional Convention and then served as the first president of the United States. That said, the violence is inexcusable. And also erasing history is similarly misguided. To just take Robert E. Lee Memorial right next to Arlington Cemetery. Many people don't know this, but Arlington Cemetery was designated right there during the war, and they started burying Union dead there to make the Robert E. Lee residence unlivable, frankly. And then later, in 1955, Congress designated the residence itself, which was never torn down, as a national memorial to Robert E. Lee. Why? Not because of his role in starting the war or leading the rebellion as the top general in the Confederate Army. It was because of the way he ended the war at Appomattox, when he surrendered, and then went on to embrace the abolition of slavery and help to think of how much more difficult it would have been to end the Civil War if Robert E. Lee had gone out in a blaze of glory or had refused to accept terms even when they were defeated. I think that the reason we honor Lee at the National Memorial, and you can read the Act of Congress yourself. It was because he dedicated himself to peace after the war, and so I think that his role he played in ending the war, I think, is worth remembering, and it tells you a lot about the leniency of Abraham Lincoln and Andrew Johnson thereafter, where they granted amnesty and then later full pardons to the entire Confederacy and all the soldiers who had fought, so that we could restore the Union and to restore national brotherhood. The Union and Confederate soldiers saluted each other at Appomattox, and that was really, I think that was the restoration of national brotherhood. And it wasn't until, about 3 decades later where you get to Plessy v. Ferguson, where the segregation and the separate but equal doctrine came into play, not by Lee, but so I think that there's been a lot of misappropriation of Lee and mischaracterization. The reason that in other words, the reason there's a national memorial to Robert E. Lee is not because he started the Civil War, but because of how he ended it and and how much better off we were because of the way it ended.
Absolutely.
And I think that, again, that's worth remembering. We can't erase history. We need to learn from history. Tipping over these statues is not going to change history. Frankly, I don't think we'd be seeing these rallies and some of this political violence, which is tragic. And what you saw in Charlottesville is a true national tragedy. And if any good comes out of it, it will be that we're going to reflect on what Lee really represented at these memorials, and how the leniency of the Union towards the Confederacy after the war helped to reunite the nation as the states who were a part of the Confederacy were reincorporated into the Union, that led to the abolition of slavery via the Constitution and later the 14th and 15th Amendments on citizenship and voting rights.
Very well stated, Robert, and I compliment you on that eloquent speech regarding Robert E. Lee. Now, that leads me to ask you a very simple question. You must be appalled like I am as to what happened to an Asian-born announcer, Robert Lee, that works for ESPN, and the cowards on the left, and ESPN in particular. They have removed him from a Virginia football game, the first one of the season on September 2nd, because his name, Robert Lee, correlates with the Confederate General Robert E. Lee. What are your thoughts on this complete lunacy shown by the left?
Well, they're insane, and this is insanity, and it's political correctness run amok, and it's just unnecessary. I mean, this gentleman, I doubt he was named after Robert E. Lee for starters, but who cares what his name was? I mean, it's just silliness. If I were him, I'd be looking for a different job. But that's my personal advice. Like, he doesn't have to take.
I would put a caveat on that.
Very talented at doing so, and hopefully there are other events where he'll get to cover. But this is just an example of the, as you say, the sheer lunacy of the left, and you can see it represented in mainstream media outlets like ESPN. And elsewhere, it's rather appalling. It's one-sided. It only seeks to tell one side of the story. I suppose that these PC police, they won't be satisfied. And take Washington D.C. for example. Washington was a slaveholder, so naturally that means we either need to rename Washington D.C. or maybe they just want to hang up signs everywhere that say America is a racist country or something, so that they can only tell us how we started. With slavery as an institution, and not how it was abolished, the people who played a role in abolishing it, how rights have been expanded, how the franchise has been expanded, how much progress we've made as a nation. That is really the true history of America. So I just want to skip all that, all the progress that was made, and just pretend like nothing's ever changed.
Yeah.
Where it was an ill founding, and none of this, none of the good things that eventually happened did happen. I think to deny history in that capacity is very divisive, and it doesn't bring us closer together. And so this political correctness can only lead to one outcome, which is more division. But at the end of the day, we have to be able to look Americans in the eye, our fellow Americans, and realize that we share the same goals, we share the same dreams, and we believe in the rights of all Americans.
I'll tell you what I would do, and then we'll take a caller. But Robert, I mean this when I say this, and I mentioned it first hour. In the case of Robert Lee, the announcer, I would look at my hole card and say, wait a minute, they're discriminating against me and my name and using me in a very embarrassing situation, and discrimination is one thing that I won't stand for. I am going to sue ESPN, and quite frankly, I think Robert Lee would win hands down and probably make a lot more money on that lawsuit than he will announcing a Virginia football game.
That's probably true, and I think that you could make a pretty good case for discrimination there, that you're just discriminating on the basis of his name. Which I don't know where he's from, but maybe Lee is a very common name where he comes from.
All right, we'll take a caller with a question. Good morning. You're on the air. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, Zeb. My question is, with this whole slavery thing coming along, what happened to the Irish slaves? You know, how come that's never brought up? It's always about the black people or what have you. But, there was a lot of Irish immigrants who came here as slaves. And the other thing that gets me is, all white people are supposedly racist or owned slaves. Well, my family didn't come up in the United States up till 4 generations ago, early 1800s. You know, that's kind of bigoted, and they just don't seem to care. I'll let you go.
All right, I'll have Robert Romano respond to that. Go ahead, please, Robert, if you would.
Again, I mean, we haven't learned that much history, American history, and I think that if there's a real problem here, it's with how young people are being educated, and clearly, I mean, look at who showed up at that rally in Charlottesville. On one side, you had those who wanted to keep the statue up, not because maybe those who do appreciate the history, but there were many there who wanted to misappropriately even though he had spoken against slavery towards the end of his life and he had helped to end the war, etc., that the reasons for having memorials to Robert E. Lee was not because he was the head of the Confederacy Army, was because he helped to end the war and save thousands or tens of thousands of lives in the process. And that was the bloodiest war in American history. More Americans died in the Civil War than any other war which we fought. And it was a terrible thing that happened to this country. And so I think that we need to look and reflect upon history. And that's the way we're going to really appreciate where we've come from and how far we've come as a nation. In abolishing slavery and eventually ending segregation, which was an unfortunate mistake by the Supreme Court via Plessy v. Ferguson. You want to talk about activist judges creating something out of whole cloth? Look at that. That was in 1896. That was almost 30 years after Robert E. Lee died.
Yeah.
He didn't do that. That wasn't him. That was the Supreme Court. And then you had about 50 years or so of segregation in states that embraced separate but equal. That was eventually struck down again, and then you had better civil rights records thereafter. But consider the progress that had been made between 1865 and 1896. That was just thrown away by the Supreme Court, and that was very unfortunate. If anything, we were more united as a nation after the Civil War, as the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were being adopted, than we were after the Supreme Court did what it did in 1896. And so do we reflect upon that, or we just think that Robert E. Lee is responsible for all the evils of that occurred? And I think that there's not a very good understanding of what's actually happened in American history, and we wouldn't be seeing these types of rallies and the misappropriation of these statues, I think, if we had better education.
I think, Robert, I'm going to say this to you, and I want you to respond. You can tell me if I'm right or wrong. I've got big shoulders. I can take it. I blame today's woes on our education system, on our school systems. They are not teaching history. They are not coming out and being blatantly honest about what happened, whether it's the Civil War, whether it's the Revolutionary War, whether it's the slave traders prior to that. They're not teaching history so that the young millennials today can understand it, get a grasp for it, and they're standing out on the streets being a know-nothing protester when really education would have maybe solved us a lot of problems.
I have to agree wholeheartedly. And there are many great teachers out there. It's not to denigrate the profession, but we need to do a better job. And when events like this happen, I think that's a moment where you can go back and reflect upon the history to create a better understanding. It's a continuing process, generation by generation, year after year. But we must do a better job, both as parents and educators, I think, to get this word out about what really happened in the Civil War and the progress that's been made on civil rights. Because I think that we've really come a long way as a nation. It would be a shame to disregard that history and the people who fought for civil rights for decades all throughout America, black, white, etc. I think that there's a lot of good people who we can reflect on, and then those who even unlikely people like Robert E. Lee, who actually did make a contribution at the end of the war.
Let me ask you this, and I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, Robert. I have now appointed you President of the United States for one day. One day. What would you do to try to curtail all this violence, all this hatred, this absolute vandalism against all of these statues? What would you do?
Well, I think President Trump is doing a good job. Actually, he's not. I think he's being the adult in the room. He's condemned all of the violence. He's condemned the hatred and the bigotry. I think he's. I think put this into the proper context for the nation to consider. And I don't think I could do a better job than he's dealing with this right now, and these are very difficult issues. What I would note is that this country has been through far worse, and that we'll endure through this as well. This is not our darkest hour by any stretch of the imagination. And there, Abraham Lincoln had a very difficult time uniting the country as well. And arguably failed, but we still consider him to be one of the greatest presidents who has ever served. But just because of what he had to go through, and so there's always going to be division. There's always going to be acrimony towards the presidency on a partisan basis, just by the nature of our system, our two-party system. But I have to applaud President Trump for condemning the political violence, condemning the murder that occurred there, and speaking out against the hatred and the bigotry, the white supremacists and other groups that showed up there, who I think are very misguided. And really, they could benefit from education just as the Antifa protesters could. What were they even protesting? They were protesting the protest. The statue, frankly, was already coming down in Charlottesville, and that was people who showed up there were to oppose the statue coming down. So it wasn't that it was a rally where they're supporting keeping the statue up. But I guess good luck getting the mainstream media to put that into context. In other words, you don't need to show up to get violence at a protest for a statue that you say needs to come down. That was already coming down.
Absolutely. Robert, I certainly hope that you will come back on our program in the future. Senior editor of Americans for Limited Government, Robert Romano, thank you very much for being on the program this morning, and I'll be in touch. God bless.
Looking forward to it. Take care.
Thank you, sir. Very interesting man, and understands the circumstances with the idiocy. And that's what it is, folks. That's not just a theatrical term. The idiocy of the left and the destroying, vandalism, etc. of our statues without really having any basis of knowledge. You know, if you're a student of history, and I brag a little bit on myself. I was a student of the Civil War for a long, long time. And it was one of my passions through high school and college. And looking at the Civil War and then the aftermath with what happened afterward to bring this country together and to, if you will, put a great big Band-Aid on the North and the South and try to reinvigorate the Union. And what Robert E. Lee did to reinvigorate and restore our Union was absolutely amazing. He was a true American. And for these knotheads that want to destroy and vandalize and absolutely take away, they don't know. They must have missed those classes, or perhaps those classes, those history lessons were not made available. But most of these people are pretty dumb. Right now, I'd also like to acknowledge the fact that our dear friends at Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert. The number to call, 436-5636. Joel Heward, the manager, his family, and his staff, they care so much about you and your family. I urge you to give them a call today. 436-5636, the number. And always remember, they will uphold the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. Please give them a call. Find out more. And they can help you. They will help you. Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert. That number again, write it down, 436-5636. Also, while we have some time, while our next couple of guests are coming in and getting ready to go on the air with us this morning, I'd like to remind everybody about Let's Ride. Oh my, Let's Ride, where the fun is sold. They're located at 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World. And the number to call, 436-4771. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, Saturdays 9 to 4. Oh, they've got all the four-wheelers. Oh my goodness, they've got all the side-by-side. They've got everything for enjoying fun out in the great Idaho outdoors. My goodness, you better stop over. They've got all the accessories. They've got a fantastic service department. You'd better check it out today. Let's Ride. 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World. Yes, sir. That's where the fun is sold. Caller, I'll take your call in just a minute. Stand by, and then I've got to get to my guest. Don't forget Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert, 436-4424. That is the number for you to make an appointment and go over there. Visit with them about your life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, everything that you need to protect your family, your home, and, of course, your business. You better check it out today. And that's Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert, 436-4424. Caller, quickly, I've only about a minute and a half. Go ahead. You're on the air.
The top 3 names in Korea, last names in Korea, are Park, Kim, and Lee, spelled L-E-E. That's something I've known for 30-some-odd years, just like Smith, Jones, and Williamson in the United States.
I'm chuckling because, you know, what you said is so true. And I absolutely am appalled. I urge Robert Lee to turn around and sue the bejeebers out of ESPN. I think he would win that lawsuit for discrimination hands down and make tons more money than he would announcing one single football game.
On top of not only name discrimination, but isn't that racial discrimination?
Oh, boy.
Racial discrimination on his part.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying he has not got any lack of discriminatory power against ESPN. He could nail them to the wall, literally, for what they've done to him, the embarrassment factor and everything. I hope he does not show any allegiance towards ESPN, and he goes after them like a junkyard dog.
Yep.
Thank you very much for your call. God bless you. Thank you. Right now, I have 2 gentlemen in the studio, and one I know is a gentleman. The other one, there's a question there. So I know Adam's a gentleman, and we have also. I can't talk to you on the radio if you don't pick your microphones up, guys. This is part of the game. You got to take your microphones and hold on to them real close. Adam, how are you?
I'm good.
I have not seen you for a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while.
What have you been doing?
I've just been hanging out in California.
Nobody hangs out in California. You go to the beach, you chase girls. What do you don't just hang out.
Well, I was just doing different things, surfing.
You were
hiking.
surfing?
Yes.
You surf?
Yes.
Don't you realize there's bad fish in that water?
Yes.
You're nuts, young man. You don't go out there with sharks and Jaws 2 and 3 and 4. You stay on the beach.
Well, it's worth the risk. The adrenaline is fun.
You like to surf?
Yes.
How far out do you go in the water?
Not terribly far.
What's not terribly far? Come on, young man. Be honest with me.
I just go to where it's like up to my chest is the farthest I've gone.
Sharks go in 2 feet of water. What's the matter with you? Somebody better correct your thinking, young man.
Well, maybe.
Okay. You like that?
Yep.
Oh, my goodness. George, what did you do to your grandson here?
Takes after Grandma.
That's not fair. Grandma's not here to protect herself.
It's the only way I'd get away with it.
How you been, old buddy? Emphasis on the word old.
I'm doing good, Zeb. It's been a busy summer, and it's nice to have my grandkids back.
Oh, my goodness. Now, what are you here bothering me for this morning? You want to talk about a car show, right?
Yes, we've got the 2nd annual car show swap meet.
Yeah.
Standing for the red, white, and blue.
Yes.
We're going to have music. Ken Mort's going to have the music, and I'm going to try to get the Oakley High School band and choir down. They're awesome.
Oh, they're nice people, too.
Yes, they are. And we're going to have vendors, and we'll have food, and we're raising money for our flag education for our young kids in Mini-Cash area.
Really?
Yes.
Now, this is called the 2nd annual Patriotic Car Show and Swap Meet, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to have...
is Donna going to swap you off for somebody else?
Yeah, they're going to have parts for cars and whatever. Just there's going to be a lot of classic cars, race cars, and hot rods, whatever. So I've got a few parts left over from the one I did that we'll put up there and sell them, get rid of them.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, this is the 2nd annual. The first one must have gone pretty well.
It went really good, Zeb. We tied that in with the last POW program that we did. We tied the car show in with it, and it had an awesome turnout.
Yeah. Now, Adam, what have you got to do with this? Is Grandpa dragging you into something to do all the work again?
Well, no. Well, I'm the commander of the Youth for Liberty. I have to...
Speak right into that microphone, Adam.
So I have to post colors with the Youth for Liberty.
You're going to post the colors for the Youth for Liberty?
Yes, I'll be calling commands.
You're pretty good at that. And you were one of the original, if not the original, people in that group, weren't you?
I'm the only one left of...
You're the only one left? What happened to all those kids?
the ones who started, they just dropped out for sports, I think is what happened.
Oh, and you're the only one?
Well, there's
the only original one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, it's pretty hard to shout commands at yourself, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay. So you're going to be there, and the Youth for Liberty is going to post the colors.
Yep.
Okay. Yup. I like that. Gary Cooper, you got a great career in films. What else are you going to do to help your grandpa? You're not going to park all the cars, are you?
No.
Oh.
We'll be helping with the flag retirement as well as Boy Scouts will help.
Adam, I want a serious answer on this. You are how old now?
I am 13.
13?
Yes.
And you're still surfing? You should have grown out of that. Anyway, my serious question is this. You have a real appreciation for the flag and what it means. What do you think about the kids today? Do they really understand as much about the flag as you do? What's going on here?
Well, no. Most of them have never been taught because somewhere in the generations it has been dropped, so it's just gone pretty bad.
Really? Would you say that there's not enough being taught in the schools?
Yes, I think that has a big part because it was still in the law of Idaho to have it, but they just dropped it.
Okay, why do you think they dropped it? I mean, what was their reason for kind of glossing it over and saying, oh, it's not necessary?
They needed more time in their other things they thought, so they're like, what can we drop? And they're like, well, this isn't too important.
It's the most important.
Yep.
And really, time-wise, from your standpoint as a 13-year-old, how much time would it really take?
It wouldn't take too long, just
a couple of times a week or a month or whatever?
Yeah, it would take just if they wanted to open it like half an hour a day, the booklets, it would be taught pretty easily.
And it's respect for the flag in our country.
Yes.
Which we need a lot more of.
Yep.
As a 13-year-old boy, George, I'm not ignoring you, but he's more fun to talk to. As a 13-year-old boy, what do you think when you turn on the TV and see all these protesters and these anti-USA people?
I get pretty aggravated.
Aggravated's a good word for a 13-year-old. It's a good thing you didn't ask me that because I'd give you the cowboy term. Okay? But what would you do if you were the president today? What would you do?
I don't know. I would try and get all the flag education back into schools to try and at least mend the bones that have been broken.
Oh, Adam, beyond your years, that is good. I like that. George, you ought to be pretty proud of your grandson.
I am very proud, Zeb. If I may do a quote from Ronald Reagan, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
We have a caller on the air, and I know you both know this man, and he is a state senator. So I want you to listen carefully as we say good morning to Senator Kelly Anthon. Kelly, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb, and good morning to George and Adam, too.
You know, Kelly, you were instrumental in helping Adam. Tell us a little bit about that quickly, if you would.
Well, if you recall, Zeb, and your listeners may recall, Adam was really an impetus. He was one of the driving forces that got us to reevaluate what's happening in Idaho classrooms, and in particular in the Minnecaza classrooms with regard to patriotism, flag education, and other pieces, and Constitution education, and other pieces that are actually, as we found out, required by law in Idaho classrooms. And as a matter of fact, Adam went with me and George, and we gave presentations to school teachers in our area in a classroom in Idaho. And one of the things I was reviewing when we went through the law was that in every classroom in Idaho, there's supposed to be an American flag. And guess what? That classroom didn't have an American flag.
Oh, my. Oh, my.
Our legislature has been very clear about the importance of this kind of stuff in the classroom, and I think it does have real value. So that's been Adam's piece in this, is he's really brought back to the forefront and the discussion that we need to be thinking about these things that are required by law and how they are important to the classroom. So that's what he's done a great job.
Yeah, Kelly, as a state senator, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for what you've done in a short period of time and how you've handled yourself with various situations. When you turn on the news at night and you see these appalling people that absolutely want to do nothing but just throw America in the garbage bin, what are your thoughts?
Boys, yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts about that, and I was hoping you'd tell me what the cowboy word for aggravated was.
Not on the radio, my friend.
I think there is a driving force in the United States today to fundamentally change what this country, the country that was founded. And when I see what's happening, there's a certain amount of ridiculousness to it, and it is aggravating, as Adam said. But I think that's all the more reason why the flag education piece and talking about patriotism and the quote that George just shared from Ronald Reagan is so important because, and I've said this before, but if you can imagine a generation of our people who never were taught math skills, what would that look like?
Yeah.
You know, it would be a real train wreck for the United States to have a whole generation of people who never even understand that stuff. And I think that's what's happening with some of the training on the U.S. Constitution, how the government functions, our civics, and patriotism. I know that patriotism in some circles isn't fashionable anymore, but I think it's key. I think it's fundamental to maintaining a democratic republic. I think we have to have it.
But how do we
see the protests? I think there's a certain faction of that, probably on both sides, that would like to fundamentally change the United States, and that troubles me.
I agree. How do we transition back to that? I mean, I'm going to call a spade, and I'm certainly not lumping all educators together because there are some sensational education people that I have the utmost respect for. But there are also the other kind. When they come out and say, well, we don't have time for that, or that's old hat, or we don't need to teach that anymore, what would you say to respond to that, and then we'll take a call?
My first response to that would be that someone needs to make sure the water gets to the end of the row. That's the way I think of it from a farm boy standpoint, meaning that whoever's in charge there needs to make sure that those who oppose it understand that this water gets to the end of the row. And so we've already had the state legislature put down the law, what it's supposed to be. The administrators we know are behind us because we've talked to them. And so when we see that the water's not getting to the end of the row, we need to motivate some folks. But I think that overall, we're not having that problem.
Absolutely.
I think what we're finding in the Mini-Cassia area is that the values and the education pieces we're trying to promote here are widely accepted and promoted. I think, for the most part, we're not having the problem.
Let's take this caller. And caller, please keep it as short as possible. I'm running out of time. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Well, Kelly, one of the things I've done in the past on Constitution Day is I'll call up the local schools right here in Cassia County and ask them what they had planned to teach our children about the Constitution, because it's just as important as the flag or any other history lesson. And they would be caught off guard and flat-footed, and they didn't really have anything planned. And I said, well, I just don't think that's acceptable. Now, they're probably good people, and I know most of them, but it doesn't matter. If I don't do my job, you know what people do? They find somebody else to do it. I'll hang up.
Respond quickly, Kelly, if you would.
Zeb, just to respond to that, I couldn't agree more. Let me tell you what's really interesting about the Idaho Constitution. So now I'm talking about the Idaho Constitution. It establishes our education system. And in the Idaho Constitution, it gives the reason why the founders of the state of Idaho felt that the public education system was vital. And it's very, very clear. It says to maintain a free and democratic society. I don't think that's verbatim, but it says the reason why we're providing education is so that people understand how the government works and to protect their rights. And so I agree very much with the caller that even more important than the flag education piece is the government and Constitution and civics piece. And George and I have talked about this before. So the other thing that we're doing in addition to the flag education, George has found some great resources for teachers who are teaching the U.S. Constitution. So I think it was last year or the year before, and George will have to correct me, but we not only provided through the Elks and through the money that we had raised for flag education in Minidoka and Cassia County, flag education materials, but we also provided a copy of the Declaration of Independence and of the U.S. Constitution, very nice copies of those for classrooms in the area. We also provided a teacher manual that is very, very interesting, Zeb. We might need to get you a copy, but it's an old teacher manual from the 1800s about the U.S. Constitution that's been reprinted.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that struck me was just how relevant everything in that book, the questions they were asking, are today. It shows the power of the U.S. Constitution, the need to protect it, and the need to educate people as to why we have it. So I agree with the caller. It's a very, very important piece. It's the most important piece.
We appreciate your being on the air, Kelly. God bless you, and thank you for all you do. You've been very, very helpful on this issue, and we'll talk to you much more as we lead closer to the legislative session. Thanks again for being on the air. Senator Kelly Anthon.
Thanks for making this an issue on the radio for people to think about. I appreciate all you do.
All right, sir.
Thanks,
God
Kelly.
bless. Thank you very much. I've got to get a weather forecast in here real quick, and we have a visitor that just walked into the station. We're going to have her sign the noteboard, and she'll introduce herself in just a moment. Don't forget Phillips Oaks, Goodwin, Crane and Company. We talked to Lyden Crane earlier this morning, one of the great CPAs over at Phillips. Quiet, everybody, please, in the studio. Phillips Oaks, Goodwin, Crane and Company, providing accounting services to the Mini-Cassia area for well over 50 years. The best of tax return preparation, tax planning, business consulting, bookkeeping services, retirement planning. They know, and they can help you with your family business and your business in general. And people starting a business, a partnership, or a corporation. Get a hold of them today. Phillips Oaks, Goodwin, Crane and Company. And right now, here's Scotty with the weather.
Well, if you're going to be saddling up today, you might pack your rain slicker. Scotty Cameron for your Zeb at the Ranch weather forecast, setting in for Gina Jameson. Yeah, about a 20% chance of showers today, expecting a high around 82. That chance of showers continuing on through tonight with a low of 57. Still about a 20% chance of showers for tomorrow. Highs are going to be at about 86. Things will start clearing off tomorrow night. Partly cloudy, a low of 56. Now for Friday, high around 88, mostly sunny. Then for Saturday, sunny and 90. That'll continue on through Sunday as well. That's your 7th Ranch weather forecast. I'm Scotty Cameron.
And thank you, Scotty. Great job again, as usual. Brought to you by Phillips Oaks, Goodwin, Crane and Company, CPAs. Offices in Burley and Rupert. Get a hold of them today. Serving the Mini-Cassia area for well over 50 years. Adam, I'm going to have you hand that microphone back to this lady that just walked in. Gee whiz, ma'am, who are you walking in off the street?
Well, I'm a citizen, Zeb, who just got so stirred up listening to what you were talking about. My phone's on the blink, and I thought, man, I'm on my way to Twin. I'm stopping at Zeb's because I got some things to say.
Well, now tell the audience who you are so that we can get that out in front of everybody.
Oh, I'm just an old retired grandma that's not working anymore until school starts at least. This is Renee Wells.
Renee, I'm so glad to have you stop in. Quickly, and then I've got to get back to their situation, but what are your thoughts about the lack of education in our schools regarding our Constitution and our country values?
That's the very reason I stopped, Zeb. I substitute in the Mini-Cassia area, and was listening to what Kelly said, and it did make an impact when they did this flag education. But I have to sadly say there are still a number of teachers who just don't feel having a flag in their room, and saying the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of the day is important.
Let me interrupt you right there and ask you. The pledge takes normally about 17 seconds.
Yeah.
When they give me this absolutely brainless twit excuse, oh, we don't have time, 17 seconds.
And you know, here a couple years ago, I taught full-time. I was doing the ESL program. I was doing a special math program in the ESL at Burley High. And bless that teacher's heart, because every single day in that ESL class, she had those kids stand. And some of them didn't say the pledge because of their ethnicity, you know, and their cultural issues. But she would make them stand, and they said the Pledge of Allegiance every day.
Absolutely.
And yet I go into some of the classes where you know, the kids, I mean, they're all Americans because they're here in America. But some of the kids and even the teachers just, that's not something we need to worry
We've got
about.
to change that. And this young man right here, Adam, is absolutely working hard with his grandpa to change that.
Yes, I am so impressed with this young man. I wish we had more young men like him.
Amen. Renee, stop in anytime. I appreciate that.
Okay, I really want you to know, Zeb, that yesterday and today both, I'm really impressed with what you're talking about. I listen to you every day, and like I said, my phone's on the blitz. If it wasn't, you'd probably hear from me every day.
You probably got your phone the same place I got mine, and I'm about ready to go to the Prime Bridge and say goodbye to that phone.
Me too.
It's not a smartphone.
Well, I'm not a smart person, but you guys have a great day.
God bless you, Renee. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Very nice lady. George, respond to what Renee just said, please.
Sadly to say, I had a granddaughter last year going to Oakley School. It come for flag education. One teacher handed him the book and said, put this in your desk and read it. That was their flag education from that teacher.
That was it?
That was it.
That was it.
My granddaughter was very upset. She's a lot of kids just opened up and threw in the dishes. I put mine in there neatly because it meant something to me.
I had an email. You had been on a couple of months ago, maybe towards even Christmas, and we were talking about this.
Yes.
And I had an email from a person that was one of those unsigned emails. The cowards, they never put their names on anything. And they said, well, there's more important things in education today to turn out top students than learn about the past with history and our flag, etc., and our Constitution. And I thought, what kind of a rock did this person crawl out from underneath? I mean, our country is being fragmented right now, this minute, by complete buffoons that want to see it turned into a third world country. And that bothers me, George.
It does, Zeb. If you take a good look back before our time when they had that Christian crusade that went to war, okay, history repeats itself, and the American people, along with everybody else, is stupid enough to just stand around and let it happen again and don't remember the past. If you remember the past, you'll damn well learn not to make that mistake.
Adam, I want to ask you, 13 years of age, and you better start thinking about 3, 6, 9 years into the future. It's not going to be long, and you're going to be a taxpayer. It's not going to be long, and you're going to have a full-time job. It's not going to be long. You're probably going to be married and have a family. What about America today? I mean, if you had the opportunity, what would you do to make it better?
I would just try to educate the younger ones because they just don't know. Most people don't know what it is or what it means behind Constitution, flag. They don't even know about what's happening in wars and what happened in wars.
But don't you think, though, Adam, and I'm just asking this question from your 13-year-old viewpoint, it's not really the kid's fault. It's the parents, isn't it?
Yes, it is, because they've never been taught.
Yeah.
And so we have to look on the teachers who stopped it and the parents. The parents should have taught them even though the teachers stopped.
I am absolutely appalled, George, that you're running into some roadblocks on this because flag education, Constitution, knowledge, etc., wow, today more than ever.
It is, and we are very blessed to have Senator Anthony in our corner. He's as adamant about this as we are, and they will learn to teach it. That's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Okay.
And one thing I'd like to make a comment on, Zeb. Last night, Adam and I was over at the Rupert Elks and presented them with a plaque for their support of flag education. This year, they stepped up and they're furnishing all the flag books. Our group is furnishing U.S. Constitution books.
I see.
These books that we give to these schools, the kids take them home. And hopefully they lay it down and their parents or their brother or sister will pick it up and read it.
I hope so.
But anyway, that's our goal, is to get these books out. We supply them every year.
Absolutely. Okay, now quickly, I've only got about 5 minutes left here. Second annual Patriotic Car Show and Swap Meet is going to be on September 9th from 10 to 4 p.m. at the Rupert Historic Square. Tell us a little bit about how it's going to be set up and what's going to happen.
Well, we'll have the cars parked around the outside. We'll have a lot of vendors on the inside of the square. We'll be set up for flag commencement or flag retirement. It's very moving. We've got a great participation from the community. It's a community retirement, and so far we're setting at about 60, 70 flags to retire. Spook Breeding puts the flags out cemetery. He's got a bunch coming. So we got a lot of flags.
Yeah.
And if the public out there, if you've got a child that wants to get involved in this flag retirement, we'll teach them the proper way. They can go with somebody that knows how and learn how to do it. It's very moving. It'll put a lump in your throat.
And there's going to be a lot of classic cars there, cars that go back to where you and I were kids when they had just kind of a roller system with rocks like the Flintstones.
Yeah, the tires just barely went round.
And race cars. What do you mean race cars?
Yeah, J.R. Shrunk and his group.
JR's going to be there.
Yeah.
That is my friend right there. He's got motorcycles and everything else.
Yeah, his group's going to bring in some race cars.
I like that guy. Boy, I tell you what, anything JR is a part of, you got to get there. I'm telling you.
It is, and we're blessed. 2 years ago, combat veterans got aboard with us on the Idaho Roll Call, and they support Rupert Veteran Memorial in the city, Rupert, 100%.
Now, food.
Yes.
Food.
We will have pulled pork, maybe hamburgers.
You don't know the guy that's cooking, do you?
Well, my wife's going to be cooking. Donna's going to be serving. We'll cook it up the night before.
Really?
And have it ready that morning.
On your brand new trailer.
Yeah.
Your fancy, custom-made George Mass Deluxe trailer.
Yeah, it's been busy.
With food served by the lovely Donna.
You got it.
Okay.
Yeah. But we'll have food and vendors, and it's just a good community event, and we welcome the community to join us.
Okay. September 9th, and that is a Saturday, right?
That's on a Saturday, yes.
From 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Rupert Historic Square. Adam, any final thoughts about this program and also learning about our Constitution? Go ahead. Wrap it up.
Well, the call show and stuff will be good for younger kids.
Are you going to be there?
Yes, I will be there.
Okay.
And so if someone does want to bring a younger kid in, like 7, 8, we can teach them
You'll help them.
Yes, we will.
Okay, now I got to ask you a couple questions that's still bugging me. You go out in the ocean on a surfboard.
Yes.
Have you ever seen anything that's under the water going boom, 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 boom?
No.
You haven't?
Not yet. No.
Didn't scare you being out in that water?
No.
Thinking that you could be washed clear to Japan on that surfboard?
Nope.
Yeah, but Sam, if you take a good look at that, a lot of that stuff on the beach is scary itself.
That's true. Let's not go there, George. I want to say God bless you, Adam. I think the world of you. You are just absolutely one of our adopted kids here at our house. We love you dearly. George, wrap it up real quick, fast.
Yes, the City of Rupert, Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association 13-5, and the Rupert Veterans Memorial Incorporated is putting this program together, and it's for the community.
Absolutely.
And come and join us.
It's going to be a lot of fun and very interesting. Standing up for the red, white, and blue, September 9th at 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Rupert Historic Square. Great folks over there in Rupert. Second annual Patriotic Car Show and Swap Meet. Adam, get out of the water!
Zeb, I want to thank you for your support. You're more instrumental to what we do than I think you really realize.
Well, I
and
appreciate it.
And for that, we do want to thank you and your wife.
God bless you, and man, you're welcome anytime, dear friend. George Mass, Adam, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I hope everything goes really, really good. They're going to visit with me for a few seconds while I've got just about 3 or 4 minutes while the news is going on. Woo, thanks, Adam. That blew my headset off. And we're going to be back in about 7 minutes with more. George, God bless you, man. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, morning. We are getting some great rain here right now. Yes, sirree, Bobby, the heavens opened up and we're getting a little rain. I hope it lasts for a little bit. I'm sorry for all the guys that are trying to get in their fields, get their hay up or whatever, but, oh, man, we need some moisture. Anyhow, Zeb at the Ranch with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, and, of course, some of our great advertisers like Western Way Services, always at your disposal. Call them at 734-6969. Really great to have George and Adam here last half hour. Appreciate them. Hey, don't forget Autumn Haven Assisted Living Center. You know, family members, listen, if you have a loved one that needs that little extra help every day, this is a nice place for them to reside. Autumn Haven Assisted Living Center, 924 Christian Way in Rupert, and they make every effort to make Autumn Haven the best place. And they invite you to come in and take tours, find out what it looks like. like, talk to the people, and I'll guarantee you they are really, really interested in doing all they can for one-on-one care. Autumn Haven Assisted Living Center, 924 Christian Way in Rupert, 436-3200. They're small compared to some, but with a bigger heart than most. Right now, there are many, many people I have on this program from all across the United States and, for that matter, the world as guests. And this man rates as one of my favorites because he also is absolutely adamant in the tomfoolery that's going on with supposed climate change. And I say good morning to a gentleman from the Heartland Institute back in the Midwest, James Taylor. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Zell. Zeb, doing great. How are you doing?
Well, James, I'm fine, but I got to tell you, and I'm sure you've noticed it because this is your business, every single day there is something in the newspaper. There is something in and on all the networks. There is something going on where the left absolutely is adamant that the rest of us that don't believe in climate change should be locked up, put in stocks, and shipped off to an island always there forever. This thing is getting worse. Am I wrong?
Well, they certainly love playing a shell game with the truth. I'll give you an example. Last week, there was a paper published claiming that as a result of global warming, we are experiencing and can continue to expect to experience a sharp decline in crop production. And as is always the case, you have this concerted effort where the newspapers, the television stations, it's like they're taking the environmental left's talking points and they all run that narrative. And the problem with that is when you look at the actual data, you see that in the United States and globally, there are records being set for virtually every crop, virtually every year in terms of gross production and yield per acre. But here's the funny part. So after I wrote an article debunking this myth that global warming is causing a sharp decline in crop production, now this week, in fact, just yesterday, you'll probably still see it if you do a Google News search for global warming. You'll probably see it right at the top. The claim is that agricultural practices are causing global warming. And the way to address global warming is to make farmers utilize practices that reduce their yields. So on the one hand, last week, they say the world is going to end because yields are going to decline because of global warming. And the next week they say the prescription to cure global warming is to decrease crop yields. Which one's it going to be?
You know, James, right there, I've got to inject something and ask you with your expertise. How do these people get an audience? How did these people really perpetrate something so phony? How did these people get major newspapers and media outlets to buy into their lunacy? How? I just don't understand it.
Well, I mean, the fact is that humans are causing some global warming. We put carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. All things being equal, you'll get some warming. And for many reasons, people justifiably say, well, let's keep an eye on this, and there's some concern. There are people that have a strong inclination to protect the environment. There are people that like to see our environment in the most natural state possible. And what that does is it leads people to accept at face value the most extreme claims and predictions.
Yeah.
And I would hope that all of us are environmentalists in the sense that we certainly appreciate the natural environment and don't want to see wanton destruction of it, and will take reasonable steps to be good stewards of the environment. And I think what happens is for the people that are very extreme in their prescriptions, they oftentimes tend to exaggerate, tend to hide the evidence that I just presented regarding crops, for example. And by utilizing that, they play upon people's fears. I think most people who believe in a global warming crisis do so out of good intentions. They want to make sure that our world is a better place, and that's a noble aspiration. I think we do just need to, on all issues, not just this issue, and on both issues and on all sides of the global warming issue, we just need to make sure that we look at the evidence and make sure that our policy prescriptions align with the scientific facts.
Okay, right there, James, you've said something that is extremely important and should be underlined. Align with the scientific facts. Those are your words, but now I want to elaborate on those. That's where the climate change kooks, I'm going to call them what I think they are, They take everything and take the so-called scientific facts, and they enlarge and make them enormously into huge lies, like what they did over in Australia. The Weather Bureau was caught tampering with climate numbers, and what the state of New York did not tell the citizens of New York, that when they go to clean energy using solar and wind, they're going to be looking at a trillion, with a T, trillion-dollar nightmare. There are so many lies that have been hidden, and now they're starting to come out because these people are tampering with scientific facts.
Right, and Al Gore in his book, An Inconvenient Truth, or it might have been his one before that, quoted a scientist. And it's really interesting because that scientist, although Al Gore did not amplify this quote, it stated that as a scientist who did believe that we are facing a global warming crisis, and many scientists do, many don't. But he said that as a scientist who believes that we are on a path to a global warming crisis, that as scientists, that they should not speak about their doubts, about their caveats, about the fact that they might be wrong. And instead, they need to present the scariest scenarios possible to induce people to action. And ultimately, what that betrays is a belief that common citizens, the American public, are not intelligent enough to make wise decisions based upon all the information. In other words, you skew the information so that the American public and policymakers will enact the policies that that particular scientist believes in. And I think that's wrong. And that's what leads to, for example, in Australia, and it's not just Australia, here in the United States they do that as well, the government overseers of the temperature data, and it's well documented, it's an objective fact, they skew the data. You get the objective temperature readings, and then they say, well, for this reason we're going to smooth the data. For this reason we're going to lower the temperature that existed 100 years ago, and we're going to raise the temperature that occurs today. And they always come up with some type of semi-plausible explanation on the surface of it. But it's funny how every time that they seem to find a flaw in the actual data that requires their subjective adjustment is always to make current temperatures appear warmer than the actual temperature readings and past temperatures to appear cooler than the actual temperature readings, which has the effect of a steeper increase in temperatures than has actually been the case.
You know, James, you're a very intelligent person, and I absolutely, like I said at the beginning, I relish the fact of having you on my program. And I asked you this question one time on a previous program. What do they want? What is their goal as far as maybe a standard mean temperature? What do they want? Really, what are they searching for? Do they want to play God and say that all regions of the United States will stay at 74 with a low of 39? I mean, what do they want?
Well, I think that most of the people who are advocating for government action and strong government action regarding global warming, their intentions are benign. In fact, they're noble. They want to make sure that we have a better environment for humanity, for ecosystems, etc. But there are some who would like to use this as a platform for ulterior motives. But ultimately what it comes down to is most of the people who are the advocates are afraid of what they think might happen, and therefore we should have no human progress, we shouldn't have affordable energy. All these things need to be taken because of their fears. And I think that we certainly need to recognize the possibility, as slim as it might be, that we're going to have substantial and harmful global warming. We need to address them rationally. But again, I think we need to apply a cost-benefit analysis and the threat of risk versus the likelihood that it occurs. And ultimately, what are they looking for? They're looking for safety and security without realizing that the path we're on right now is one that is a path with little danger. And let me give you an example. Oftentimes we hear people cite this alleged consensus, the 97%. 97% is a number we hear a lot about all these scientists who agree that we must do something about global warming. So how can you disagree with 97% of the world's scientists? And if you ask them to cite an actual poll or survey, they can't. Because the only one, there's actually two, but they asked the same question. They came up with this question, with that 97% figure, asked two simple questions. One, has the Earth warmed in the past 100 years? Well, the answer to that's yes, I'll tell you that. And two, have humans played some role? Well, the answer is yes. I've already told you that in this broadcast. Now, that simply means that we're having some warming. That doesn't mean there's consensus that we're facing a crisis, that we need to take action, etc. I'm part of the 97%. But if you look at the more important question, another survey of more than 500 climate scientists globally, conducted by two scientists who believe in a global warming crisis, so it's not skewed in any way. The core question was they asked these climate scientists that given the information we have now, should we be turning this issue over to policymakers to take action? Less than half of the world's climate scientists surveyed in this survey, over 500 of them, less than half said yes. So the real consensus is that we need more information, and we certainly should be careful that we're not going to fry the planet. So far the evidence says no. But we need to look at facts, and we need to not skew the results of phantom polls and data to try to make people believe that there's a consensus that does not exist.
Yeah, James, right there, you bring up another excellent point. Some of the people that are advocates of climate change, Al Gore, etc., that ridicule us and say we're climate deniers and we should be locked up and shipped to a foreign island someplace, they say that the science is complete, it's a done deal. And that is the biggest lie of all, is it not?
Well, they like to say the science is complete and cannot be debated because they can't debate it, because the facts are against them. The best way to avoid a debate on the facts is to say that there is no debate. But for Al Gore, of all people, and I really don't like to get into personalities, but Al Gore just begs for it because of the way that he attacked people who disagree with him. You know, when he compares people who disagree with him to slaveholders, to apartheid supporters, etc., Al Gore is the biggest hypocrite of all. Al Gore has spent so much time attacking cigarette and tobacco companies, and the reason why his family gained so much wealth and political influence, what launched him into political power, is his family owned and operated a tobacco farm. That's how they got rich. Al Gore, in his movie An Inconvenient Truth, showed a picture of his farm, didn't tell people it was a tobacco farm, but said in his lifetime he's seen the effects of climate change on his family's farm in Carthage, Tennessee. Well, when I saw that movie, I looked up the temperature data for the 3 weather stations closest to Carthage, Tennessee. They triangulate around Carthage. All 3 of them showed that in Al Gore's lifetime, temperatures in Carthage, Tennessee have declined. They've gotten cooler. Al Gore's the biggest hypocrite and the biggest twister of truth there is. So for Al Gore to lecture people about global warming, if he were presenting facts, that's fine, but he doesn't. He dismisses debate. He dismisses evidence. He just attempts to vilify and caricature, when if there's anybody who deserves it, it's Al Gore himself.
Yeah, but after all, I mean, we're talking about the father of the Internet, are we not?
Yes, indeed. But one thing I think is important for us to keep in mind is that as we do want to be good stewards of the environment, as we do want to understand that we could be wrong, the evidence points in the direction that we're not facing a crisis, but in theory we could be wrong. There are options available, policy options. We don't even really need to be having this strong scientific global warming debate because there are affordable energy options that reduce carbon dioxide emissions. Because of the natural gas revolution, technological advances in hydraulic fracturing and directional drilling, natural gas power is now less expensive than coal power. Coal power is the primary culprit of rising carbon dioxide emissions. The reason why the United States has reduced carbon dioxide emissions more than any country in the world in the past decade is because more and more of our power plants are switching from coal power to natural gas power. So we need to make sure that we don't have the environmental activists that now want to shut down hydraulic fracturing and natural gas production because it's a, quote, fossil fuel. We need to make sure that they don't shut down natural gas production. Also, globally, where air pollution is a much more serious problem than in the United States, especially in Asia where it's such a problem. These are nations that can't afford the expensive low-carbon solutions that the environmental left offers, solar power and wind power. They will not adopt them. However, they're heavily dependent on coal. They would love to have natural gas power, except that we only have one natural gas export facility here in the United States. And unfortunately, the federal government under the Obama administration, the state and local governments on the West Coast in particular, have blocked the construction of export facilities. If we were to allow the export of natural gas, we would see a dramatic decline in global carbon dioxide emissions. So whether or not you believe in a global warming crisis, we have policy options that safeguard conservatives' concern for affordable energy, because natural gas is now cheaper than coal, and also meet people who believe in a global warming crisis, their fears about global warming. And on this issue, some of the people that I've worked with, some of whom are friends of mine, who are on other sides of this issue, Kerry Emanuel, Ken Caldera, Robert Mueller, James Hansen. These are the Mount Rushmore figures of the global warming alarmism movement. Each of these figures agree that we should have more nuclear power here in the United States. We should be looking into natural gas and hydropower. These are people who understand that regardless of where we stand in the climate debate, there are policy options that don't need to divide us. They meet all the concerns of conservatives and liberals, of climate alarmists and climate skeptics.
Yeah, but
this is where we need to go on a policy path.
James, one thing I think needs to be brought out, and with your expertise, I know you can. We always hear the vilification of CO2. Wait a minute. We need CO2. We need that element in our system and our environment. And quite frankly, I think it's been villainized to the point where people think, oh, it's terrible. Those that don't understand and didn't take a high school science course, they really do not know.
From a historical standard, the Earth is currently in a status of CO2 deprivation. We're near our lowest level that has existed. Now, oftentimes people will say that temperatures and carbon dioxide levels are exceptionally high, but they're only comparing current conditions to what occurred, say, 50 or 100 years ago.
That's right.
Well, 100 years ago, we finally emerged from the Little Ice Age, which was the coldest temperature period of the past 10,000 years. And that was a period in which temperatures and carbon dioxide levels were quite abnormally low. But if we look at things in a more proper perspective, if we look back over the past 2,000 years, over the past 4,000 years, over the past 6,000 years, in other words, during the entirety of human civilization, and we can go back much further, temperatures have been warmer during most of that time. And without modern technologies, humans did quite well. Humans adapted to those temperatures quite well. In fact, humans thrived more so in warmer temperatures than in cooler temperatures. But again, that doesn't mean we shouldn't completely disregard the concerns and fears that perhaps I'm wrong, perhaps the scientists I speak with are wrong, perhaps we really are facing a serious problem. But if that's the case, again, we have options. We can use more natural gas, we can use more nuclear power, which is entirely emissions-free, we can use hydropower. If we get behind these energy sources, not only do we safeguard our environment, but we also reduce carbon dioxide emissions. I don't think carbon dioxide emissions are a problem, but if they are, we can solve them without destroying our economy and our standard of life.
James, in a thumbnail sketch, tell my audience, and I've got about 3 or 4 minutes left, the regression of mankind if we adopted all the treaties and all the different Paris Accords, etc., in a complete regression to our society. What would happen to humankind, in your opinion?
Well, that's a complex question because the Paris Climate Accord really doesn't impose much on the rest of the world. It's basically a punishment on the United States and a forced transfer of wealth. Keep in mind that we did not enact the Kyoto Protocol here in the United States. George Bush was vilified for it, yet U.S. emissions have declined more than any other country in the world during this time period, since Kyoto was enacted. With or without Paris, our emissions currently are in a state of decline more so than any other nation. With or without Paris, so long as the government doesn't restrict natural gas production and natural gas usage, our carbon dioxide emissions will continue to decline. With or without Paris, short of government prohibiting the export of natural gas, we will see a decrease in the growth rate of global carbon dioxide emissions because the world is starving for American natural gas, and that will reduce carbon dioxide emissions. On a business-as-usual course, I don't believe we're going to see near the increase in carbon dioxide emissions or temperature growth that the alarmists fear. But nevertheless, again, we should always keep an eye on it, and we should always be looking for common ground solutions that meet everybody's concerns. And I think that although President Trump talks a lot about how he likes to see more coal, the fact of the matter is, if we believe in the free market, if we believe in government not picking winners and losers, we're going to see natural gas in particular replacing coal, and that will be good for us and good for the world economically and environmentally.
Would you say, kind of to wrap up this segment, that we need a kind of a handshake on both sides and agree to these terms? Common sense and common study of this issue, one of which can't be blatantly charged down our throat by the left.
I think you hit it right on the head, Zeb.
Well, I'm glad to hear you agree with me because you're an excellent guest, and this topic is one that really infuriates me because I think it deserves a lot of study and common sense, like I said a minute ago. James, I really appreciate your time and effort coming on the program this morning, representing the Heartland Institute. James Taylor, God bless you, and come back again soon. Thank you so much.
The honor and the pleasure are mine. Thank you, Zeb.
Thank you, sir. I really enjoy having him on. He's very knowledgeable, very articulate, and quite frankly, very, very honest about his appraisals. And that's something that's not happening on the left. That's something you're not getting from the Al Gores and others. An honest appraisal. And I really appreciate it. I'm going to take some time right now, and I want to acknowledge the fact that tomorrow we're going to get together at Denny's restaurant at 11:30 for our Zeb's Lunch Bunch. And there are some people out there that think, oh, well, it's kind of a club. Oh, well, it's kind of a membership. Oh, well, it's kind of a gathering of just their friends. No, it's open to anybody. We had some people say, well, we'd like to come, but we don't know if we'd fit in. You'll fit in. You're welcome. We've got that whole community room right there at Denny's. And whether we have 50 people, 70 people, or whatever it might be, you're more than welcome to attend. We'd love to have you. We get together, have a really nice lunch, and we've got a lot of door prizes, a lot of fellowship with people visiting with each other. It's just one great big happy family. And we're going to get together tomorrow at 11:30, and we want to say thank you to Smith's Foods, Hanson Mortuary, Stokes Groceries, Doug Martin, and many more, and including Denny's for all the gift certificates we're going to be drawing for tomorrow. But please come on down to America's Diner, and that's Denny's Restaurant at 611 North Overland in Burley. Zeb's Lunch Bunch tomorrow, and I'll hurry off the program. We've got Senator Mike Crapo on the last segment tomorrow, and as soon as I'm finished up with him, zoop, in the pickup or the car, excuse me, into Burley we go for Lunch Bunch tomorrow at 11:30. Right now, we're going to send it back over to my good buddy Wheels at our main studio, and we'll be back in just about 3 minutes.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Thank you very much, and welcome back to our last half hour on Zeb at the Ranch. And a couple of weeks ago, actually it's been closer to probably 3-4 weeks ago, I had an opportunity to meet this next gentleman that's going to be on our program, as he's on the committee over at the Minidoka County Fair and Rodeo. And I was so taken with his job and what he does, and then I found out that as an airline pilot, he probably, and it may have happened many times, was the pilot of the planes that I flew when I was really heavily involved in my rodeo business, going all over the United States and Canada. And I'd like to say good morning to an airline pilot that I've never had an airline pilot on my program before to ask various questions. Good morning, Marty Van Tassel. How are you?
I'm doing great, Zeb. How are you this morning?
I'm fantastic, and I know you're on a cell phone, so I'm going to ask you to really hold it real still, Marty, and that way we can get the best reception. Give us a little thumbnail sketch about who you fly for and a little bit about your career.
Well, I'm a Delta airline pilot. I fly mostly international, basically all over the world. I'm either in the Pacific or I'm in Europe or South America, kind of all over the world.
Now, Delta Airlines, did you start on the big jets, or like I alluded to in the opening, you probably started on some of the smaller planes that I flew on to go to St. Louis or Salt Lake or whatever. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. After you build so many hours, I got on with SkyWest, and I flew with SkyWest for about 10 years. And flew all over, kind of all over North America. That's about all they fly.
Okay, but what was the main factor where all of a sudden you said, wait a minute, I've had enough of this. I want to get on the big planes, and I want to go transcontinental. What motivated you to want to do that?
Well, I don't know, Zeb. I guess it's human nature. We always think bigger is better. And it was just one of those things. I always wanted to fly the heavies across the pond.
Now, I love the terminology, the heavies across the pond. What kind of schooling or education, leaving the smaller planes of SkyWest and going to the quote-unquote heavies that fly across the pond? Woo! That must have taken a little extra work and study, did it not?
A little bit, but basically, Zeb, it doesn't really matter what airplane you fly. When you go to a new airplane, you spend about 3 weeks in ground school, and then you'll spend about 2 to 3 weeks in the simulators, seeing every adverse situation that is really possible.
You know, Marty, you have a job, and I mean this in all sincerity. My job, I can make a mistake, and I can say, oh, darn, I'm sorry, and then we can redo it. Maybe if I say a commercial wrong or an address wrong. But really, in your job, you have to live almost in a mistake-proof environment, do you not?
Yeah, that is correct. That's why, it's the training is so intense. Our medicals are so intense. We pretty much have to be at the top of our game all the time. We have to have the required rest. They just pretty much make it to where we're at the top of our game whenever we're behind the yoke flying the airplane.
Now, when you do that, you say the requirements and the restrictions as far as what they say you can do and the regulations, etc. I mean, what's an average month for you as far as actual flight time?
I'll generally fly about 80 hours a month, which when you're flying international, that's generally only about 10 to 12 days worth of flying a month. And that will pretty much take you all over the world. Just to give you an example, the first week in September, I'll head off and go to Hawaii, and then I go over to Tokyo, and then I go over to Singapore, China, and then back to Tokyo and back to Portland and then back to Salt Lake. And that's about 40 hours worth of flying.
Oh, my goodness. Now, when you go to these various countries, and you mentioned Tokyo, and you mentioned China, etc., with the world situation the way it is today, are there a lot of fears and intimidations about landing at some of these foreign airports?
No, but I will tell you, in the back of your mind, you're kind of nervous with some of the situations that's occurring across the country, and then, some of the crazy things that happen over in Europe and London and recently in Spain. We're really taught to be very aware of our surroundings when we're on the ground and, stay away from crowds, big crowds, and just to be very, very cautious.
Now, the caution I can understand, but now, do you stay with your crew as a team, or are you allowed to go separately, maybe to check into this motel or this hotel, and maybe to do some sightseeing while you're on the ground, or do you have to basically kind of stay as a team?
No, we're once we get there, the airline arranges all our hotel accommodations, so we all stay in the same hotel. And we all know where each other's at, and we always have a meeting point if something happens. But, like, next month I have 48 hours in Ireland, where sometimes I'll take my wife with me, and we'll just kind of go see Ireland for a day and a half.
Okay. Now, what about the situation to where you get on a different plane and you've got a different staff, you've got a different airplane perhaps? What about keeping the team effort? How do you keep that team effort when you don't know some of these people?
Well, you just learn how to have a good judge of character.
Uh-huh.
But see, we're pretty well stuck with that. Me and the other pilot, there's generally on these long hauls, 3 of us. We're together the whole trip, but we're change flight attendants all the time.
I see. I see. Now, I have a question about the airports. I would imagine that landing at, let's say, Singapore and landing at, let's say, San Francisco or even Salt Lake, how do you keep track of all the different runways and the schematics of where to go and where not to go? That, to me, is mind-boggling.
You know, it's really quite simple. We have just a little computer program. We use what we call a Surface, and it's got all the schematics, all the runways, all the approaches, all the arrivals. So it's almost as easy to land in Singapore as it is in Salt Lake City. It's really quite simple because they have to adhere to the same regulations, the same rules. So it's really quite simple. The language, English is the national or the worldly language for the aviation. Sometimes the accents are a little difficult, but all in all, it's really quite simple.
You know, that was what I was going to ask you about, the language. Now, I know that English is universal, and I certainly hope some of those people can talk a lot plainer in English than some of the telemarketers I get on my telephone.
You know, sometimes we look at each other when we get a clearance and we'll say, could you please repeat that? But most of the time, they're pretty proficient in their English language, and they do a pretty good job.
You know, safety is a big item, and I know, Marty, that I flew probably, I'd say 40% of my travels when I was really on the road in the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s was by aircraft and different flights. And I think, and I'll stay and maintain, that the larger airplanes, like you're flying, etc., much safer than ground travel. What would you say about the safety of our airlines today?
Zeb, we have so much redundancy in those aircraft that they are incredibly safe. I know I've had people say, aren't you nervous flying? And I always tell people, once I get to the airplane, I feel 100% safe. We have so many backup systems, and they say flying is 100%, 100 times safer than driving. No, I don't ever feel at all nervous or in a situation where I'm afraid when it comes to flying. It's just very, very, very safe.
When you sit down in the cockpit behind the wheel, if you will, and you're going to be the pilot, you're going to fly that plane, I mean, I can't even imagine. I have sat behind the wheel of a little Piper Cherokee. I mean, I have sat there for a moment or two. But man, to man and literally fly one of those huge aircrafts, what is that like with all those dials and those buzzers and those beeps? Wow. Tell us about that.
You know, it's pretty awesome, to be honest with you. I remember young in my career, I'd see one of these big heavies taxi out and see this little guy sitting in the front. And I thought, well, that's kind of funny. That little guy controls our whole airplane. And, you know, these airplanes, they'll take off close to 1 million pounds. But, I mean, it's an awesome sensation. It really is. The takeoff and landings, I should say, are the fun part. But you just, before we get in those airplanes, our schooling is so intense. We pretty much know every system. We know how the fuel works. We know how the hydraulic systems work. We know how, I mean, pretty much everything. So if there's a problem, we've already been over it multiple times. So, I mean, it's an awesome feeling, but with the knowledge that we have, you feel really comfortable in them.
You know, being comfortable is one thing, and having your knowledge probably creates that comfort. But flying in inclement weather, where basically, whether it's a snowstorm or whether it's a severe rainstorm or whatever, and relying on the instruments, it takes a rare breed of person to be able to do that, does it not?
Yeah, but we rely on the instruments so much, Zeb. I actually really enjoy flying in inclement weather. I mean, I don't know if I should say this, but it's kind of exciting when you shoot an approach down to minimums. It's really awesome when you take off, say, out of Salt Lake. It's a horrible, miserable day, the visibility is really low. You take off, and then you fly over to Singapore. You're in the clouds most of the way, and you break out, and the runway's right there, 50 foot in front of you. It's kind of incredible to see that type of technology. I don't know. It's pretty awesome.
Let me ask you this question. When you perhaps land at an airport and then you've got a layover and then you've got another plane that was brought in by someone else, you have a checklist of things to check on that plane. And are you always comfortable that the prior staff did what they should do as far as making acknowledgments? There must be a real trust factor between pilots.
Oh, yes. And nobody likes to fly a broken airplane, so before every flight, you have your walk around, you have all your first flight checks, you have all your different checks, and we know a lot of each other, and everything's always documented as far as if there's any mechanical problem. And one thing I have to say about Delta is so good if there's ever a question. They're always there. They never pressure us to fly an airplane that probably shouldn't be flown. If there's a problem, they're always so good to fix it. That's what I love about Delta.
You know,
and I think most U.S. airlines are that way.
You know, when I talked to you that night, we had supper together, I noticed the smile on your face and the enthusiasm about being a pilot. You really love your job, don't you?
I do. Several reasons I love it. One, I get to travel. Two, there's just something about flying a 1 million-pound airplane around the world that's just pretty cool. And three, it gives me an opportunity to, I have a business on the side, Jeb. I run a dairy supply business throughout the whole United States. And, it's kind of the best of every world. It's pretty awesome.
Now, how long does an average pilot fly? I mean, have you looked forward to perhaps the day when you're going to say, that's it, I quit, or what's going on in Marty's life?
Well, the retirement age is now 65 years, so most pilots will fly 35 to 40 years. You climb in the front of an airliner like Delta, you probably got 40 to 50,000 hours of experience. I probably won't stick around till I'm 65, just because I'll probably do a church mission or something. But most pilots will fly till about 60 or 65.
Anything that you haven't done in the airline industry that you'd like to achieve? Is there any certain level or anything else that you'd like to have for a goal? No. I mean, it would be fun to fly a new airplane like the Concorde that you can get from here to Europe in 3 hours, but it doesn't really seem to matter whether you're flying a little RJ that hauls 50 passengers or a 747 after 4 to 6 months. They're all kind of the same up front. Well, I'll tell you something, Marty. You're a fascinating person and a very nice gentleman, and it surprises me that our trails didn't cross as I climbed into the airplane, possibly down in Salt Lake years ago. But Marty Van Tassel, thank you for taking the time and really giving us some insight as to what a professional airline pilot does. Thank you so much for being on the program, and fly safe.
I appreciate that, Zeb. It's been my pleasure to work with you.
Thank you, sir. God bless. Marty Van Tassel, and I just absolutely found him to be one of the nicest people. And we had a chance, along with his wife and my wife, to sit and visit one night. And I just was amazed at his stories about being an airline pilot. And I highly respect what he does. Marty Van Tassel, thank you for being on the program. It is time for our weather, and I can tell you this, it rained a little bit ago, and now the sun's starting to come out. Hey, let's find out more from our weather being sponsored by Scarro's Meats. 331 North Road, Jerome. The number to call them, 324-7657, or you can go to their website, scarrowsmeats.com. Oh, delicious meat. Oh, man, the bratwurst. I love bratwurst. If you haven't heard that already, I love bratwurst. And, of course, they've got all the bacons, all the way up to the prime ribs and everything else. Oh, I'm telling you, they are good. Scarrow's Meats in Jerome. Right now, here's Scotty with the weather.
Well, if you're going to be saddling up today, you might pack your rain slicker. Scotty Cameron for your Zeb at the Ranch weather forecast, setting in for Gina Jameson. Yeah, about a 20% chance of showers today, expecting a high around 82. That chance of showers continuing on through tonight with a low of 57. Still about a 20% chance of showers for tomorrow. Highs are going to be at about 86. Things will start clearing off tomorrow night. Partly cloudy, a low of 56. Now for Friday, high around 88, mostly sunny. Then for Saturday, sunny and 90. That'll continue on through Sunday as well. That's your 7th Ranch weather forecast. I'm Scotty Cameron. Have a great day.
Thank you, Scotty. Boy, he's done a great job for us this week, filling in for Gina. I appreciate it. And the weather brought to you by Scarrow's Meats. 331 North Road, Jerome. Number to call, 324-7657. And remember, they are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. Thank you, Scarrow's Meats. Don, great job. I've got time for some phone calls. Give me a jingle on the landline, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Did you hear, it was on the news this morning, excuse me for choking, that former National Intelligence Director, James Clapper, you know him, you know, the guy that looks at the camera with the vague stare, and they'll ask him a question, he'll go, and then he'll finally make an answer. Well, this man, by the way, I want to say this about James Clapper, has lied twice to Senate hearings. I mean, this guy is not to be trusted. Well, he comes out and he starts denouncing Donald Trump in a very slow way that he talks and thinks. And he thinks Trump is unfit to be president right now. And he made the accusation, and boy, he'd better be careful here. He said he thinks that Donald Trump as president is unstable. Here is a guy that has lied before hearings. Here is a guy that is not to be trusted. And then he comes out and defames and denigrates President Trump. Oh, he's unfit, and he is unstable. Ooh. It almost falls into the same category as Debbie Wasserman Schultz. You know, this story about Debbie Wasserman Schultz, for those that haven't been following it with her IT man, you know, the guy from Pakistan and everything, and all the illegalities that might crop up and literally could put Debbie Wasserman Schultz behind bars. Isn't that a pleasant thought? I never did like her. And, you know, this thing is getting more traction. The more they study what happened with the guy that was taking money and information and trying to use it to go back to Pakistan and everything, and some of the illegalities on the information that they had, ooh, it's becoming more interesting. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz, right smack dab in the middle of it. Her, along with James Clapper, it makes you wonder, really, are there any honest people on the left? Ask yourself that question. I'm going to take a phone call. Give me a jingle, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. While I'm waiting for your call, I would like to say thank you. Thank you to the Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. They've got a little slogan for this month that get where you're going this summer. And I'll add to it and say, and then turn around, come home safely, too. With all the tires that they have for your pickups, your SUVs, your cars, your trailers, everything. I mean, man, they've got them all. They've got them all, and all the different tread designs, all the sizes, everything at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Then don't forget, that they have the best in trained technicians for brake service. That's really, really important. And front-end alignments and shocks and struts and batteries. They really care. And above all, they serve you so that you can have safe driving. Please stop in and say Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, Daniel on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland and Burley. Oh, yes, it's true. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, absolutely the best. All right, where's that call that I thought was coming in to help me wrap up the rest of this morning? I will say that tomorrow on the program, we've got a lot of great people, and I did manage to get a hold of Crapo's office back in Washington, and they assured me that he will call in at approximately 10:32 tomorrow morning. And we're going to have about maybe 15, 20 minutes of visiting with him about the situation back in Washington, D.C. I'm not pulling any punches. I mean, we're going to be absolutely asking him poignant questions about what's going on with the Trump administration, what's going on or not with the repeal or replacement of Obamacare, the budget, tax problems, everything else. I want some straight answers on this. And so we're looking forward to having Senator Mike Crapo on the air tomorrow morning. We also have, from the Cassia County District, a lady that was chosen as Teacher for the Year, and that is Jasa Fillmore. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow morning's program. Caller, I've got a minute and a half. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that Crapo's having a luncheon or something at the or at the park in Jerome for the VA.
Right.
And I'm going to be there because I've been jerked around so much with my benefits. And I've already talked to his office. That's why I know they're having this. But I'd like to invite all the veterans to come to it also if they got questions about their benefits.
I agree with you, and that's the right way to approach these situations. If you get an opportunity, ask directly and really get the information. Keith, God bless you, man. I got to run, but tell us how it goes. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right, sir. Thank you. Yep. We're going to be back tomorrow morning at 8:06 and ride the horse for 3 hours right here on KBAR 1230 AM and streaming live on the internet, ZebBell.com, all over the world. And we certainly appreciate all of our calls, all of our listeners. Thank you very much. And we always end the program by saying this: the way things were are the way things ought to be. God bless you and your family. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:06.